late Sunday afternoon, my wife and I and two of our boys went to the airport. I needed to drop off a book. I'm a fairly active member of the flying club there, and I had borrowed the book from someone, so I was just going to drop it off. And we're driving into the airport, and I heard this. I heard the beating of the rotor, and looked over my shoulder, and there was this big black helicopter bearing down on me. So it kind of felt like a scene out of a movie, because these things are pretty big and pretty loud, and we normally wouldn't see something like that in our area. And these things are commonplace throughout a lot of parts of the world, but here it was a little abnormal. And as we pulled in to the airport, to the port terminal building, it hovered in and positioned itself in front of the fuel tank. And I saw Government of Canada, RCMP, and right away I'd seen the news articles about these things coming and being deployed. And right away I put two and two together. Oh, these guys are here for fuel. And so being a member of the flying club, I can help transiting pilots fuel up. And so I got out, and three commandos jumped out of this helicopter and walked up to me with big guns in hand. And I said, hey, would you guys like some fuel? And they said, absolutely. So it was a very cold day, and we went into the terminal building, and I got them started with the fueling procedure.
Oh, so you actually got to help fuel up the helicopter. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, we provide that as a service for planes that are transiting across the country. Our location is pretty strategic for small aircraft that will be transiting from east to west. And we fill up helicopters like this in spring and fall when the firefighting crews are transiting from BC to Quebec. And so usually we'll be fueling the white and red firefighting helicopters a few times a year as well.
And what was it like for your wife and kids as well, who were along with you?
Well, I mean, this is the small town, rural Manitoba, so this is a pretty thrilling day. You don't see this every day, and being an aviation freak like I am, anything that flies under its own power is exciting. So
I actually understand you actually got to go take some pictures inside the helicopter. Did your kids got to sit in there too?
My boys did. They went and sat in it, but it was so unbelievably cold that they were in there for a couple of minutes and they came right back in. So it was a really cold day.
Well, I imagine like the blades of the helicopter must not help with making things feel even colder than it is.
Yeah. And the thing about these Black Hawk helicopters, they are different than your ordinary Bell 412, because these things have 5 monstrous blades on them, and they beat the air with such authority that you can hear them from miles away. This effort of what they're doing is that visible presence, right? And so you can see and hear this thing from a very far distance away. So it's a deterrent as much as it is actual control. And I guess for me, being interested in geopolitics, it was interesting as well, because I got to visit with these guys, these commando special forces unit guys. Like they were like straight out of a movie, SEAL Team 6, the ultimate specimen kind of material, and with all the gear and all the guns and all the vests and everything. And I could just chat with them at my leisure for close to an hour.
Wow.
And there was almost no question they wouldn't answer, and it was great. And so we talked about some of the politics of it. We talked about some of the logistics of what they're doing and why and how they work with, the U.S., their U.S. counterparts. And it was fascinating for me from a geopolitical perspective, and especially with, the news of the family that froze to death a few years ago, with that being back in the news again recently. That's the kind of thing, unfortunately, we see close to the border sometimes, and we don't want to. So having these guys out here to look for that kind of activity is awesome.
And from chatting with them, does it seem like the helicopter will be making frequent stops at the Morden Airport?
Yeah. They said they would be in frequently. They were quite pleased that we could help them out with fuel, and we've got a nice warm building for them to come in and warm up in. That helicopter is not warm, so this was, I think, it was a welcome stop for them. We have a courtesy car that we offer to transient pilots to get around if they want to go for a meal or something. So I was able to help them out in the future if they need that sort of thing. So our airport is it's also a little bit coincidental, maybe, because we just had a meeting last week, and I'm on a steering committee for a regional airport, which we think is essential to southern Manitoba for both business and public safety. And so this was yet another compelling reason why this is an important topic of discussion, because we need to have aviation services in the southern part of the province to serve this kind of thing.
Uh,
So,
and as a flight enthusiast, obviously you're excited to see this helicopter. But even just as a resident, southern Manitoba, you live between Morden and Winkler. How do you feel about there being more things like this Black Hawk helicopter helping to patrol the border?
well, I think it's great. Like I've worked in the agricultural industry my entire career, and farmland butts up against the border. And I've seen many, many times in my travels going out to look at different pieces of land, you can see these well-worn paths, that footpaths going across the border or from quads or vehicles or whatever. And so you know that there's illegal cross-border activity happening. It's more than likely nefarious in nature, where it's either drugs or people or guns or something that's being smuggled. And it all happens sort of outside of the public eye. And it's unfortunately only the big news stories that we hear about in the media. But if you go and drive along some of the paths that parallel the border, you'll see where people are crossing. So it's happening on a daily basis. It's happening enough that these paths are well worn. And that's something that these guys are going to help us out with. So,
well, Chris, thanks so much for joining us today on Radio Noon. Really appreciate your time and all the best.
all right. Thank you very much.